Colin has been, you know, in NFL locker rooms, D1 football player for Temple.
Big win this weekend.
Loves that. Big win for them. Dave Weinberg to my left, Press of Atlantic City, as PT mentioned before the break. So, guys, I mean, a lot of weekend stories to talk about here. Eagles stuff, college football stuff.
Yeah, you guys want to play rock paper scissors for who goes first? Or who
yeah,
wants to,
I mean, you know, how do we want to divvy
Let the
this
legend
up?
go.
Colin is immediately pointing to the unofficial mayor. Cuts, David. The cuts that came out. Anything surprise you or jump out at you?
Not especially as far as the Eagles' standpoint is concerned. I pretty much went the way people expected. I'm glad to see that Wendell Smallwood got signed with the Redskins, only because I think he's too good of a running back not to be in the league. It's just the fact that the Eagles have so much depth there that they can't, they just couldn't afford to keep him. Same with Josh Adams, who was their leading rusher last year. I was glad to see that Nate Herbig, the rookie center, they had two rookie free agents make it, him and T.J. Edwards, the linebacker from Wisconsin. That's the one thing that really impresses me about the job that the Eagles do. They always find one or two guys every year that slip through the cracks for a lot of the teams, go undrafted. Corey Clement was a perfect example. Every year they have like one or two guys that kind of, you know, they go undrafted but come into the Eagles camp and impress enough to make their own spot on their regular season roster. And most times they wind up being contributors, if not just on special teams, but, you know, even getting like spots in the rotation over their defensive line or running back. And I got to give the Eagles a lot of credit for finding those guys that a lot of teams kind of miss on.
When the Clowney stuff kicked itself up, did you actually think there was a point where he might be coming to South Philadelphia, or were you in the minority of like, no, that's not happening?
No, I mean, there was like a vague possibility, I think, but I just don't know how he, I think we might have talked about this last week, how I just don't see how he fits in the locker room. I don't know that he's a bad guy, but there's a really strong culture there, really strong leadership that maybe they could have brought him into the fold like they did with Bennett last year.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I just thought he was better off going somewhere else. I think they're okay at defensive end. I mean, not to say that Clowney's not an elite player, but I don't know that I want to rent a guy for 1 year.
Right, and maybe you're not willing to give up a Dillard or somebody like that.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
It would have taken a piece to get him.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly right. Yep.
How about, they only kept 4 defensive tackles, and there were a lot of people that said that then, if you read between the lines, says that Fletcher Cox is going to be okay.
Yeah, you would think so. I mean, they're certainly not going to go into their opener with 3 guys. So,
right.
You know, even though he hasn't practiced, he hasn't really done much in the public view or in the view of the beat writers. But he seemed pretty confident last week that he was going to be ready to go, and so you got to take him at their word, like you said. If they only keep 4, that means that Fletcher's ready.
And while we're talking about today news, you said Trenton Avenue Beach. I'm a little jealous. We've been here, doing the show, but I guess they extended Crayvon LeBlanc today.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about that?
That's a very not surprising, but if you'd have told me a year ago, obviously, you would have even.
Because you're like, who is this guy?
Yeah, I mean, he got cut by the Lions, I think it was, and out on the street, and he struggled his first game with the Eagles. I mean, really badly, but in New Orleans, I think it was.
Yes.
And then, but came back and really showed he did all he could to learn the defense, to get comfortable with his teammates, and really showed up down the stretch last year. And the fact that I'm glad to see them reward him. That's a perfect example of a guy who another guy flew under the radar, but made the most of his opportunity. And congrats to him that they think enough of him to give him an extension today.
So some people are out there joking about the narrative of the fact that the Redskins have signed some of the Smallwood, right, and then Trayvon Hester, and even Doug made light of it today too. At first he kind of actually started to answer it honestly, like, oh yeah, that's a thing, and then he kind of switched tune, like, I mean, you've been around the league a long time,
yes.
right? This isn't like 81 where the playbook never changed.
No, correct.
Then,
there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing that teams don't know about the other team. I mean, to suggest that Wendell will be able to offer some sort of trade secret or inside thing. I mean, everybody knows everybody. It's not rocket science. I mean, it is rocket science actually, but there's no big advantage to be gained for the Redskins by signing Wendell, other than helping their backfield.
That's what Doug said. He basically came out and said, listen, there's nothing that they're going to really tell the Redskins coaching staff that they can't find on tape themselves.
Right,
like everything is on tape. It's Doug's job to get stuff out there that hasn't been on tape and be innovative with his personnel and new play calling and things like that. I mean, Wendell Smallwood going to the Redskins is not going to be the difference maker in an Eagles win or loss this week.
Colin, you played. Did anybody ever pump your brain for information of like you were in so-and-so's camp, you know?
No, but I'll say this. I was in the same offense with Matt Nagy in Chicago, and the day one install verbiage and the day one install signals to receivers to change the route a little bit. They may go week 1 or 2, but they're changed week to week, I'll be honest with you. So maybe Wendell week 1 could say, hey, when the tight ends, they love to do the 3-by-1 with the tight end alone to the boundary, with the running back to the right of the quarterback, say if the boundary's to the right, and you get a one-on-one read, what's the coverage? If it's a cover 3, you run the slant. If it's some sort of quarters or man, work a corner with Ertz or a corner and go. So like sting, and there's all these different words and terms that I was in the same system that we all did. But they're not going to call it the same way week 1. There's no way. I mean, because they play the Redskins every year, right? You're right. Yeah. So to me, there's really nothing that he would be able to give that they wouldn't know already on film.
You know, Dave, another thing that came out today, you know Chris McPherson that works for the Eagles,
sure
right?
do, yep.
He took a picture in the locker room of Darren Sproles' locker right next to Miles Sanders' locker. Reaction to that?
Well, I mean, it's convenient. They bench all the people at my position, but yeah, it's that's gonna help Miles out a lot. Darren's very well respected around the league, one of the all-time greats, and if you talk to any young running back, whether it's Corey Clement or whoever, the influence that Darren has over the rest of the running back room is you can't state it enough. It's he's not the most vocal guy. He's very humble, very quiet, but he does have a strong leadership in his own way, and I know that he's very well respected, by Steve Staley, by everybody in that running back room. So anything that he can, Miles should, stick next to him whenever possible, and the more knowledge that he can learn from Darren, the better off he's going to be.
Is there any, so week 1's coming up. Is there anything that we're going to see in this game against the Redskins that may change throughout the season? So Jordan Howard, for example, is starting at running back most likely Sunday against the Redskins. And I'm on record saying that I think by the middle of the season, whenever it happens, I think Miles Sanders is going to slowly work his way into getting the most reps when it's all said and done for Eagles in the backfield. So is there any position that you're looking at that, like, we're going to see in week 1 that when it's all said and done, that guy's going to be getting much less playing time?
You're getting not 1 but 2 head no-nos on each side.
Well,
go ahead, Colin.
go ahead.
You start.
Well, 2 things. One, I think one thing of concern is it isn't is Fletcher Cox going to be ready or not, because he will be ready. He's a veteran. But what is his health going to be throughout the year? A guy who did not go through training camp. Again, I'm not saying he's got to be play in the games and such, but he's not going to get hit essentially until the first snap of the game. Right? How long is he going to hold up throughout the year? I think that's something to watch. Again, it's a little off pace to your question, but something I do want to bring up.
Yeah.
How healthy can he stay throughout the year if he didn't go through maybe the rigors of getting hit every other day in practice? Because there's something about getting hit and becoming callous. There is something to that. Secondly, I think Jordan Howard is such an underrated piece in this puzzle. If they're willing to give him volume touches, he will produce. I was with him in Chicago. He is a volume back. He's going to run the ball. He may run right into a tackle and fall forward for 2, and everyone's like, oh man, get the rookie in there, because everyone's such a microwave society where we want to break play every. You see Christian McCaffrey, you go up the street with Saquon Barkley, you're seeing all these running backs, Zeke. But to me, he's more of a straight. He's a straight line runner who needs volume, and that's what he had in Chicago when he was at his best. So I do think the narrative for him, for the Eagles, will be more of him throughout the year, in my opinion. Maybe not on third down. I think you have some great third down backs, but more of him. In the draw game, you could find the rookie out of Penn State, or you can find Darren. So, my opinion, that will be the one thing that I disagree with you on. Is I do think he'll see a lot of touches. He should. I hope he does.
And I just think that one of the things that makes Doug such a great coach is his ability to improvise and to change the things from week to week. I mean, there'll be times when Jordan might be the bell cow, but then the next week it's Sanders, and the next week it might be even Sproles or Clement.
And that's what New England does, right? I mean, every week you're like, who do we got?
Right.
Picking up a guy off the fantasy wire.
They have so many offensive weapons now that there's going to be times where Zach Ertz gets 10 catches in a game. Next week it might be 2. And Deshaun Jackson or J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, somebody's going to step up. That's the unique ability that they have. They have that versatility. They have that ability to just take whatever a defense wants to try and take away. There's 3 or 4 other options out there that they can take advantage of.
So the Eagles are the 3rd oldest team in the NFL.
Yeah.
Let me know if I'm
second. I think might be 3rd. I don't know.
I have 3rd here.
Yeah.
2nd, 3rd, whatever it is. An average age of 26.7, right? Top 3, let's say.
Okay.
Jason Peters 37, Sproles 36, D-Jax 32, Jason Kelsey, Malcolm Jenkins, Brandon Graham 31, Brandon Brooks 30. Josh McCown is turning 50.
Those
in
3 guys
November.
really pull it up at the top. Can we eliminate from that?
No.
Eliminate Josh from that puzzle.
Yeah, we got to eliminate Josh. But my point is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it neither?
I don't think it's a thing, right? If you're good, you're good. Are you an old? It's not like I remember like back in the day with the Flyers. They're an old team. They're slow, which there's some truth to that. But in this sport, guys are playing into their 40s now. We see it all the time, especially at the quarterback position. And then a guy like Darren, he's had multiple injuries. It seems like when he played with Drew Brees in San Diego, was like I was like 4. So, it's a tale to so many different careers. And again, with the sports science and the health and the training and the less hitting in practice, guys and the players are protected a lot more too.
Right.
Their careers are longer. So to me, the age thing.
Well, I just want to ask you one more quick question here, and then we'll have Dave jump in. But for the listeners out there, what NFL locker rooms have you been a part of?
I was with the New York
teams?
Giants, undrafted. I was there with them in training camp, and then I was with the Bears for a full year. John Fox's last year, 2016, half the year on the practice squad, week 8 through 16. Then I got signed to an off-season contract. Spent the whole off-season with the Bears last season, all of training camp, and then got cut. Then went to the AAF. So I've been in 2 NFL locker rooms, multiple tryouts, mini camps with New Orleans, Detroit, been all over.
So you've seen a wide range of locker rooms, and you've been, on a handful of NFL teams and organizations. Was there a difference with veterans and a lack of veterans? Like, have you been in a young locker room, and what was the difference compared to Giants versus the Bears? Anything that you noticed in your travels in the NFL so far?
I think the one thing that fans wouldn't know about is every organization is run completely differently. Some organizations treat the players.
We're talking to you, Dolphins, but please go ahead.
No, I mean, again, from the outside, you see they may run it fantastic. The players may love it there, but they may not win. You never know. I know New York, first-class organization. The Mara family was unbelievable. Yeah. I had the same experience with the House family in Chicago. These are 2 storybook franchises. I was so fortunate to play for those 2 franchises. So I think organizationally they're different. Sure, locker room you're different. Again, I wasn't as active, but I was in the locker room. I was a part of practice every day. I was there for a calendar year in Chicago. I was in New York for a while before I had emergency appendectomy. So to me, leadership in the locker room, it matters, but you have to go perform on the field at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And the more, winning hides a lot of issues. So if you have a talented team and you keep winning, hey, just keep rolling. But when the thing get tough, right in Philly this year, things will get tough, but they have the guys there to really, like you said, they have the guys there to hold it together, and I think they're going to have a great year because of that.
That's Colin Thompson with us here on the Sports Bash. Follow him on Twitter at Colin Thompson. To you, Dave Weinberg here with us as well, longtime Press of Atlantic City columnist and Eagles beat writer, fresh off the, what beach was it again?
Trenton Avenue.
Trenton Avenue Beach.
Are you going back?
Cape May Zone.
Not today.
Too windy.
Not today, but remember, local summer begins.
I wasn't there all day.
Today.
Yeah.
They call it the red light party start today because all the red lights are taillight party.
We
all the taillights are out of
saw
town.
that traffic going the opposite way.
Yes.
We were thrilled to be coming down to exit 0 as everybody else was going in the other direction. All right, we're talking Eagles football. We'll certainly talk a little college football, what took place last weekend too. But Dave Weinberg, for Eagles football, I will say this. Everybody's number one question is, well, we didn't see him at all in the preseason. What's Carson Wentz going to look like when he makes his debut? And maybe the addendum to that is we also haven't really seen the offensive line together that's supposed to protect him. And I just think back to that time where Ryan Kerrigan was spinning around Big V like a top. There's the potential for disaster.
The potential is there, certainly, but I don't think that Doug would have taken that tact if he wasn't pretty confident in the way things are going to play out. I mean, I personally, I might have maybe played Wentz a little bit in maybe that third preseason game, just to get his feet under him, just to get used to getting hit, like Colin was saying, just to get game action. But Doug knows it way better than anybody. I mean, he played the position for so long. He's learned under the best coaches. If he didn't feel like Carson needed that, then I got to take him at his word. The offensive line is a concern. I think it'll be a big asset to them if Brandon Brooks is ready to go week 1, because he's the best guard in the NFL in my opinion. And to not have him, there's a big drop off there with Big V playing guard instead of him. I'm a little concerned about Jason Peters. He hasn't been able to make it through a whole game, so that's a whole season for a while now. And he's they've been doing a pretty good job at keeping him fresh, keeping him healthy, limiting his reps. But I think there's a little bit of concern there. But you're right. They do. I guess the joint practices with the Ravens were big. They seem to get a whole lot of work in with that and get a little bit of a chemistry going. So, if Doug says they're ready, I got to take him at his word. It's going to be real interesting to see how everything gels. You haven't, like you said, you didn't see any of that in the preseason, so it's kind of a big mystery. But
we had John McMullen on earlier in the 4:00 hour. He said maybe the biggest news out of the NovaCare complex today was that Doug admitted that they wanted to have Clayton Thorson back, and it took all the restraint and professionalism for the media not to go, why?
Well, back on the practice squad is different than back on the active, right? You invest in a draft pick, you invest in this kid. Not to take your question, but
no, take it.
Why not? I mean, right? And everyone's he picked Dallas over Philly, but honestly, you would too. Look at the roster. Look at the quarterbacks: Sudfeld, McCown. There's no way you ever have a chance to even play this year or next. Sudfeld's going to be back, I believe, right? So you want to be the number 2 guy. I don't know what the situation's like in Dallas, but I don't think it's as strong as it is in Philly. And again, Dak's a little bit more mobile quarterback, maybe can become more susceptible to injury. So I'm sure him and his agent sat down and picked through it. Philly fans don't think he picked Dallas over Philly. It's just pure business, pure roster. But hey, it's a good narrative, right?
And it's really easy to trash Clayton, but realize the situation he was in, who he was throwing to, who was protecting him, who he's playing against. There's a big growing curve, especially for quarterbacks in this league. You can't come in as a rookie, especially as a 5th-round pick, and expect fireworks. I mean, that's not going to happen. So, there were some growing. He had a really bad first game. He had a really bad last game. The 2 games in between, I thought he played okay. So, I just think it was just the experience factor kind of affected a little bit. But Colin's right. I mean, to go to Dallas is probably the better situation for him. In the long run. I mean, Brandon, he might have learned more with the Eagles. Being in that quarterback room with Carson and Josh might have benefited him. Learning playbooks, learning playing styles, that kind of thing. But if he envisions himself as a potential starter, he was probably better. He absolutely was better off going somewhere else.
Yeah.
I want both of your thoughts, Dave and Colin, and obviously, PT and maybe myself, but I think you guys are slightly more educated.
We want your thoughts.
Thanks for lying, Colin.
We want your thoughts, Ryan.
Zeke, Melvin Gordon. I've been saying this. I said this earlier. I said it last week. Le'Veon Bell sits out, right? And I think the worst thing that could have happened was exactly what proceeded to happen. He sits out. They end up plugging in James Conner, and his production is as close to equivalent as you can get.
Very good, yep.
So if you're Melvin Gordon, if you're Zeke, I just don't understand what your end game is. And how does that, from a player standpoint, and even someone who's covered the league and been in locker rooms for as long as you have, Dave, how does that affect the locker room? I know 99% of the time they say all the right things. We're not going to spend anyone else's money. He needs to do what's best for him and his family. But the reality is that isn't always the case. So I was just curious on what your guys' thoughts were with the current Zeke and Melvin Gordon situation.
Well, that's a tough one. I would think from a team standpoint, like a player standpoint, you're right. They want to see any player wants to see the other player get as much as he can.
Of course.
But you do have a point about the camaraderie, what does that say that you're putting yourself above the team? I mean, I understand his reasoning. He wants to get as much as he can, and that's perfectly within his rights. But
they're under contract.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
But you also could be cut out of that contract at any moment. So to me, it's not like baseball. We're like, well, he's under contract. And you're right. You're 100% right when in other sports, in my opinion. But when it comes to football, and they're not guaranteed money,
Yeah.
if you have the leverage at any moment of time, you have to, and your agent wants you to, and every other player wants you to use that leverage, whether it's right or wrong.
But my point was,
to you.
when mentioning Bell,
Yeah.
I feel like they've lost leverage.
He lost money. The running backs have.
Absolutely.
We were talking about it today. They don't have a ton of leverage. I was talking about it with some family today. They don't have a ton of leverage. Receivers, quarterbacks, tackles, maybe a shutdown corner, a defensive end. They have the leverage. A middle linebacker. You know what? There's one every year that comes out undrafted. You can pick a guy up who's cut off another team. I'm not saying it's not a pivotal position. They all are, but some are, more than others.
Yeah, this is not a running back league like it used to be. I mean,
No.
You're not going to get the guys who are, toting the rock every play. They do it with Zeke, obviously, but yeah, this is more geared through throwing the ball more than ever. So they have, and backs are notoriously have a short shelf life as it is. Once you turn 30, that seems to be like 65 in the NFL.
Other than Darren.
That's the retirement age.
Darren
right?
Sproles.
30.
Darren Sproles the only one.
Yeah.
He's the exception, definitely.
He is the
Well, no, I guess
exception.
Shady's like 31 or 32.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's up there.
But he didn't have a very good year last year, so we'll have to see if he's able to turn it around with Big Red.
All right, let's close with this, at least this segment with this. Peterson today basically confirmed that the starting corners, Dave Weinberg, are going to be Ronald Darby and Sidney Jones on the outside, with Avonte Maddox as the nickel corner, and then did say that Rasul Douglas is going to play a lot versus the Redskins too. So he kind of locked in what you guys were already speculating. How do you think they're set at the corner position?
Pretty good. I mean, it'd be great when Jalen Mills comes back. If when that is, I don't know. But yeah, I think they learned a lot last year. I think that kind of benefited them in the long run, where they had so many injuries, where those guys like Avonte, Crevon LeBlanc, Russell were forced to step into bigger roles, and they're the better for it now. They're used to playing in big time situations. They're used to dealing with increasing responsibilities. So I think I think the secondary is pretty well set now.
One little more on top of that. What's been your assessment of Rasul Douglas's rise, or how his talent has grown?
Honestly, I had my doubts about him earlier. I just thought that he's known for his aggressiveness, and that's what got him into the league. But that also hurts him on occasion. He takes chances he doesn't need to take. But it seems like he's kind of become more consistent, more in tune with what Jim Schwartz is asking. And I was pretty impressed with his improvement last season. And I thought he had a very good training camp this year. So I'm looking for big things for him this year.
We've got Dave Weinberg with us from the Press of Atlantic City. Follow him on Twitter at PressACWeinberg. Colin Thompson is here as well. Temple, NFL product as well, and NFL training camps. Ryan Rothstein and I, we talk about the NFL. Let's throw this out at you. We had a texter earlier in the day that asked, what are the chances they signed Chris Banjo? Good player last year. Does that ring a bell to you? Who the heck is Chris Banjo?
I don't know.
Is somebody having fun with me?
I hope so.
This was at 4
He was
o'clock.
with the Saints.
With
Hold
the
on.
Saints?
Let's look him up. He's a safety with the Saints.
I thought somebody was punking me.
That might be a better question for John McMullen.
Safety, free agent. He played at SMU. Jacksonville
He was
Jaguars.
released by the
undrafted.
Saints.
Yep, released
Yeah.
by the Saints. Free agent, undrafted in
What-
2013.
What does he play?
Safety.
Well, safety is an area. Look,
I like what they did back there.
you
but
know the definition, or you've been following this whole vested veteran thing, right? I mean, that's just part of the logistics of Howie Roseman and the genius of Howie, right? We're not going to have you on the roster in week 1 because then we'd have to guarantee that we pay you.
So
but
you're
we'll
bringing
just,
Orlando Scandrick back in week 2. Correct.
yeah, and then he gets game checks, which equal,
Correct.
I'm terrible at math, and even I can figure that out.
Yeah, that's part of the way the game's played. Yep.
I guess John ran into Camus Grugier Hill today. Is that a guy they're going to miss until he comes back from his sprained MCL?
He had a pretty good year last year, I thought. He's another guy that took advantage of the opportunities with Jordan Hicks being injured all the time, and Camus was initially viewed as just like a special teams guy, but he's emerged as a core linebacker. I mean, they generally only play 2. They really need Nigel Bradham to come back. That's the big loss for them. But Camus will certainly help them also.
What does it say to you when the Arizona Cardinals sign your project lineman and stick him on their 53-man roster. That was the guy from Army, right? And we don't know if it's Toth or Toth. What, you have a weigh in on that?
That tells me that Arizona doesn't know what they're doing.
Shocker.
I mean, the guy hasn't played in forever. He needs to gain like 30 pounds. You don't put him on the active roster. That's a practice squad guy, I would think.
Right,
But,
Brett Toth,
yeah.
I suppose. Colin? How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you?
All right, good. Should we flip over into some college football?
We can. First, want to give a shout out to my family. They're in Portugal. They're listening right now. So thanks, guys, for listening.
Wow, very cool.
7-3 all the way to Portugal.
It's
Love it.
Nice to know that Dorian is not interfering with our coverage in Portugal. That is
We're good.
You know.
Yeah, we're all good.
Although the wind is picking up here, Dave. Aren't you an amateur weather guy too, as well? Is this normal for
Amateur weather guy.
Yeah, I don't know.
Kate May, you're actually a professional weather person. My father, David.
Yeah, I think you're
Yeah.
talking about Mike Trout, but it's it gets breezy once in a while. It's not big deal.
Before we switch over to college football, I want to get a little bit ridiculous here with the quarterback position in Carson Wentz.
Oh, good. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I jumped ahead.
How much of a leash, so to speak, does Carson Wentz have, do you guys think? Sunday, he comes out, couple picks.
A leash.
He's going.
No, not as far as pulling him and taking the bench,
I
but
hear
as
you.
far as, an uproar from the city and fans if the Eagles go 0-2 and he's 1 touchdown, 4 picks, and we're talking about Russ, and we're talking about him not playing in the preseason, and we're talking about why did we trade, or let go of Foles. Like, I
That's the
hope
thing,
that
yeah.
doesn't happen, but if
That's
the
a
Eagles
fair
come out
question.
week 1 and look bad and Wentz throws a couple picks,
Oh, there'll probably be some backlash, but you're not going to put Josh McCown out there. I mean,
no, I'm not saying that.
Oh,
That
okay.
leash was
I was
a bad terminology. I'm not
Okay,
saying he's going to
okay.
get pulled. I'm saying how
yeah,
much
you know
how
how-
much of a wiggle room do you give him? Do you give him 2 weeks before we assess him? Do we give him 4 weeks? Do we give him, what's your mindset with Wentz going into the season as we prepare for week
you can
1?
give him a quarter before you assess him. That's just the way Eagles fans are. They're always
Right.
always ready to dissect everything that every move that he makes, and that's the nature of the position. He's their franchise quarterback. He's going to get that scrutiny from day 1 to the end of the
Of course.
the last day. So, there's going to be that doubt, especially. It kind of helps that the guy looking over his shoulders now in Jacksonville, so there can't be that fallback. Oh, okay, let's put Nick in. So he's got that kind of that cushion there now. But he's going to get criticized if he doesn't get off to a good start.
Do you expect him to hit the ground running? Do you expect him to have rust?
I don't think he'll have any rust, personally. That's why he's making what he's making. That's why he's
Yep.
up there with Patrick Mahomes as one of the 2 up-and-coming quarterbacks that are going to carry the NFL into the distance. A friend of mine in the league who's been close with the Eagles that's still playing in the NFL, I proposed to him. I said, hey, what do you think about, they're going to sign Foles for way less. They're going to have more room to sign better players. They're going to have a non-injury prone quarterback. They're going to have a healthy quarterback relatively. What do you think about that? And he said, if the Eagles don't sign Carson Wentz, they are crazy. He's a generational talent,
Yep.
generational leader, and the right guy to be a part of that team. So I don't think he's held back. I think there's zero leash. I hope he goes out there and rips it. I hope he runs it down the middle, breaks 3 like he did against the Redskins a couple of years ago, runs over the safety, and everyone's like, what's he doing? Because you only can play one way. Okay, you can be more cautious for sure, but you can't think, oh, how can I not get hurt today? You have to go out and play. When you're not going full speed, when you're thinking about, okay, I got to slide like this so I don't hurt my knee, it's not good. Good things do not happen. That's what I said earlier about Fletcher Cox. You need to get out there. You got to play. You have to get reps. You can't just go. Now, again, we don't know what he's getting in practice. The media, he's not practicing with the
And
media.
you brought up the Ravens practices as being like, the closest to game simulation that he had. By the way,
It's ramped up.
I must have given out the number correctly because Colin from Egg Harbor Township Glenn from Egg Harbor Township wants to talk to you, Colin. He says, hey, I want to talk to Colin. So, Glenn, if you're there, you're on with Colin Thompson on the Sports Bash.
What's up, Bash Boys? Just calling. I thought you got a football player who's been in the mix. I just was curious about an NFL contract. And when we hear the NFL contract, we always hear 2 numbers. You hear a first number and then a guaranteed number. Do the players ever get to that first number, or is it always renegotiated or they let go? I mean, do they ever get the full amount of their contract ever? I'm just curious about that.
You
always hear. Go ahead.
It's an open-ended question,
You always
right?
hear-
Because The guaranteed money, I'll explain it, which I don't know if you're asking if that's a such thing or not, or is it feasible in this current league, in this current landscape of how contracts are done in the NFL. The guaranteed money is a separate number. Well, the guaranteed money is whatever they're going to guarantee you out of the number they give you, right? Carson Wentz got X, but he's guaranteed Y. So is it harder to get the week-to-week paycheck? Yeah, something that people think, great, you're on the active roster, you're going to make X amount of money. No, it's week-to-week game checks. If you get cut, those checks stop. It's not like anybody else. It's not like basketball. It's not like baseball. The guaranteed contracts are not a thing. Sadly, I'm proof of it. I signed a 3-year with a 4th-year option to the New York Giants coming out for $1.2 million.
Sounds great.
I got my signing bonus, which was in the single thousands, right? I mean, nothing out of the 1.2.
So what's with the 3 years 1.2?
That's
like
just
why?
the basic rookie contract for something per year.
And the signing bonus, though, if I'm not mistaken, that's where the money is supposed to be. Like,
yes.
when the money that you get in your signing bonus is the only money that can never be taken away from you.
Correct, 100%. And only, I think it's the top 15 picks or top 10 picks, they're fully guaranteed every dime, which they changed. It used to be like everybody, right? The Jamarcus Russells and Matt Ryan was a part of that. St. Bradford was a part of that. So now the guaranteed money thing, right? The CBA, which is coming up here to be renegotiated and a possible lockout, probably lockout.
Yeah, I'm watching Dave nod over there.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
probably lockout. So I mean, Dave
He's
can
covered a few
elaborate
of
on-
these.
Yeah, I think right there probably will be a lockout. There's just too much money now. There's too much stuff going on compared to the last lockout and the last negotiation. So that's a whole different can of worms. But thanks for the question.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Josh,
good question,
is
Glenn.
Glenn still there? Glenn, did we answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, it's just something confusing to me as a fan. When I hear a guy getting $75 million and getting 50 guaranteed, I mean, what about that other 25? Does he ever get that? I mean, is that just not even in the picture? I'm confused.
That
by
other
NFL
25
contract in
million.
general.
That other
Right.
25 million is if he played every game. If he's active for every game. 46 guys dress, 53 players are active. There's 7 guys that don't dress on game day. They're getting their active paycheck no matter what, whether they play in the game or not. They're inactive, so they wouldn't play. Or they're active, but they're not dressed. They're part of the 53, not the 46. So that, say 75 million and 50 million of it's guaranteed. If you play in every game, you get that 75 million. But if you don't play in any game, you're getting the 50 million.
Okay, I remember just hearing Mark Schlereth say one time the NFL contracts would be on toilet paper because they're worthless. You could just flush them down the toilet. I remember him saying that years ago, and it's just
Mark's great.
It's just
Yeah.
crazy to hear you say that, man. Have a good day, fellas.
Thanks for the call.
Thanks,
All right,
Glenn.
Thanks, Glenn. Good to hear from you. We've got Colin Thompson here, Dave Weinberg as well, Pete Thompson, Ryan Rothstein. We're at the Barefoot Bar at the Marquis de Lafayette, talking a little football here in our final hour of the show. Bill, the steel drum guys already rolled in with the steel drums. There's going to be some gentle breezes, or maybe not so gentle breezes, as we feel the tropical effects of Dorian making its way up.
They're going to
here,
hear
right?
Pete all the way out the Cape May Lighthouse.
Who?
I mean, not Pete, the drum guy.
Oh, the drum guy, Bill.
Yeah, Bill.
Bill,
Yeah, I
sorry.
mean,
They can hear Pete,
They
too.
probably hear-
They
Yeah.
might hear me too. I'm
Can we
not
get a Pete
shy.
Thompson drop? Can we get a Pete Thompson drop?
Josh, Colin really wants to hear it. If you've got
One of the
your
many.
finger on the button.
Hi, I'm Pete
That's
Thompson.
my favorite.
I don't know that Dave's heard it yet. And
Huh?
poor Josh, he's probably on the other side of the board.
Yeah, probably.
That's all right, Josh.
Well,
Sorry
we'll get
about
it.
that. Put
We'll
you on
get
the
it.
spot.
Hey, it's
man.
Pete Thompson.
Yes.
Perfect.
Did you know they did that, Dave?
Makes my day.
They recorded that, and then they play it repeatedly during the Eton and May.
Well, Josh,
Harry
his name-
I'd argue they don't play it enough.
Harry chuckles the same way every time, no matter what.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like Troy McClure.
Are you
know,
ready
I mean,
for
it's-
some football?
Oh, you don't have to play that.
Oh, yes.
I've never heard that one.
Oh, that's
Can we
a
get
new
that
one.
more time?
Right. That happened.
Are you
on
ready for
Friday
some
because-
football?
I think we've heard enough of that. My dum-dumness decided to record the promo that way. I mean, we're very excited that football is back, and Mike Gill and I are going to do a show at Ocean Saturday, this coming Saturday.
Oh, very
so
cool.
we're going to be out at Ocean Casino and Resort at their sports book. So we're very excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
However, you know, the very first line of the promo said, "Are you ready for some football?" And rather than just read it like the professional that I'm supposed to be, I decided to channel Hank Williams Jr. and try to sing it And only after I did it did Josh point out to me, this is going to run about 80 bajillion times between. And then I thought, oh no.
Josh was just rubbing his hands quietly in the corner.
Yeah.
Like, yes.
Well, Josh record and hit stop. That too. That's another one I said.